Like there's this really interesting phenomenon going on, which is people are paying a lot more attention to the content that they're watching. They're more engaged with it. They're more, fascinated by, all the different shows and streaming services. But at the same time, there's actually less ad supply available because of the changes in distribution, the changes in ad models. In a lot of cases, the shift to completely non-ad supported platforms. So you've got this dichotomy of kind of two realities happening. A reality where people are engaging with and watching and involved with more content than they've ever consumed before. But at the same time, there's less available ad space for marketers to take advantage of. And that's a real challenge and problem as we move through this kind of transition to the new media economy.
All right, so that tees up an obvious follow-up, which is that, so how does advertising need to change in that environment?
Well, I think the first thing that everyone needs to do is we need to stop thinking of advertising as a blunt, kind of single dimension solution that has to look the same, feel the same, and act the same in every environment. I mean, today, if you look at quote unquote television, whether it's distributed through linear platforms or even streamed, we still kind of expect ad pods with multiple ads in the pod. They're intrusive models. And pretty much every type of programming carries the same type of format that I just described, whether it's sports or news or scripted entertainment or reality. And the question I'd pose to people is, why? Why does news programming have to have the same type of ad model that live sports programming has? Why does scripted entertainment, which people want to watch in a single sitting, they don't want to be interrupted while they're watching great storytelling, why do we have an ad model that does exactly that? Why can't we come up with different ad models for different types of content? Why don't we look at the types of consumer behaviors that are occurring? People binging versus people watching live versus people watching out of home versus in home, people commuting and consuming content versus very passive and lengthy experiences that they may have. Why do we assume that the same ad models have to exist in all those types of environments?
As a big ad buyer, someone controlling a lot of budgets, are you finding a receptive audience when you raise these questions?
We're finding a lot of people who are interested in talking about the concepts. The reality is that there's kind of the way the world works and then the way we wish it would work. And the reality is marketers today have to move product. They've got to advertise, and there's an existing marketplace that's fairly legacy driven in terms of its ad model and how it operates. That's a big battleship to turn, to use a phrase that most people will relate to, and it's just not going to happen quickly. So we can talk about the concepts. They're provocative, but actually getting them done and turning that battleship is the real work.
So what are your thoughts on live programming, television, and the associated advertising opportunities?
Look, live is increasingly one of the most scarce but valuable pieces of real estate in the media marketplace. If you look at television rankers, you'll see that pretty much 90% of the top 100 programs on a total audience basis are live sports programming, NFL primarily. They draw the largest audience. They're a communal experience. They happen at a single point in time. There's a reason why people watch them live, because they have a very limited shelf life. Once the game's happened and everyone's talked about it, kind of no interest in watching it. You know what happened. And that's the same for reality-based programming and big tentpole events like the Oscars or other programming of that sort. So live programming provides marketers with this very unique opportunity to associate their brands at a culturally relevant moment when people are talking, when people are engaged, and it also allows them to scale an audience all at once, which is very different from what we see in the on-demand space, where it's hard to do that in an environment that is consistent and the same.
All right, finally, how do we get to more interoperability of ad planning across the walled gardens?
Well, I'm not sure, we can get there. I think the walled gardens, there's a value proposition that the platforms have, clearly, in that they've scaled audience, they have massive amounts of data, and the ability to, on a kind of vertical basis, kind of help us manage large amounts of inventory in very kind of simple and straightforward ways. The problem is, how do I connect those environments? And I think privacy is a key blocker in that space today. Whether in actuality is or it's just the reason that's being cited. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to figure out a way to allow identity to cross walled environments or gated environments, so that advertisers can manage campaigns at a campaign level, not within silos. And until we get there, we're going to have the continued inefficiency of frequency and duplication, and just quite honestly, bad experiences for viewers at the end of the day.